Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today, viewers, and welcome to this student finance presentation, courtesy of the University of Liverpool. Thank you ever so much for dialing in. I can still see people are joining. I also noticed that a lot of you joining us today joined us last week for our accommodation webinar. So welcome back. Thanks for coming back. And we hope you become a regular viewer with us with this series of webinars. So first of all, just a few reminders and some housekeeping top tips. So for this webinar, we're going to be here until 5:30 tonight, so 5:30 p.m. So just to explain the format of the session as well, with your Q&A, so we're actually answering questions through the Q&A function. So if you could possibly hold back on your questions until my colleague Louise has finished her presentation, and then we'll do our best to answer those both verbally through me and Louise, but also through our colleagues who are behind the scenes as usual, answering through the textual Q&A, so typing answers to you. So we'll start doing that once Louise has finished presenting. So this particular PowerPoint, this presentation will be focusing on how student finance works within England, but we will be able to answer questions on student finance Wales, student finance Northern Ireland, Scotland through the Q&A. So if you're one of those students, do feel free to stay around and ask us questions through the Q&A once the presentation is just done. This session is being recorded. So what happened is we'll then, once the session is finished, we'll upload this to YouTube and you'll receive a copy of the recording through some follow-up email that we will receive and send out to you. Okay. Through the presentation, we'll be putting helpful links in the chat function for you. So the links that Louise mentions in her slides, we'll post in the chat as well, and any other useful links as well. You might notice now, if you just load up the chat, that I've put some links in there for you for student finance, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. So do keep an eye on the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll keep posting links in there for you. Okay. Another reminder as well, there is a Student Money Week next week. So Student Finance England are doing their Student Money Week, so a week of informative activities. I'll just get the schedule up here now. So it's all hosted on Student Finance England's Facebook page from next Monday, so the 1st of March, up until the 5th of March, so Friday. So please do visit the Student Finance England Facebook page for that as well. So that was it. So without any further ado, and I'll hand over straight to my colleague Louise for this presentation on how student finance works in England. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Jamie, for this. Yes, so hello, everyone. My name is Louise, as Jamie has just mentioned. So I'm going to talk to you for about 20 minutes or so, just to explain how the student finance system works for those students who are resident in England. So I'm going to cover what the main costs are and the loans that are available to cover those costs. I'll also highlight some extra forms of support that many of you will be eligible for. I'll then go on to the repayment system and to give you a few tips about how you apply for the student finance as well. I'll then finish off with giving you some tips about budgeting and saving your money while you're a university student. So first off, the main cost of going to university is, of course, the tuition fees. Now, the name tuition fee might imply that it's just going to go to what you do in the classroom, but that's not the case at all. So what you pay for the tuition fees goes towards all the different services across the university community. So all of the support services, careers advice, facilities like libraries and labs, etc. So it goes to help fund a wide range of different services that, if you want to make the most of your time at university, you really should take advantage of them. So for the tuition fees, on the left-hand side here, you can see this amount of 9,250. So that is the maximum amount that universities can charge home or UK students. So this is per year. You can make payments voluntarily if you want to, but there's certainly no obligation for you to do so. So the set amount for a standard university year is 9,250. Now, many universities, Liverpool included, will offer quite a few non-standard year programs as well. So if you want to do a foundation program, which is aimed at students who perhaps have not done quite the right qualification to go on to a full degree straight away. So this is like a bridging year. So for that at Liverpool is 5,140. So these amounts are just what we charge at Liverpool. Other universities may charge different amounts. Similarly, many students take up a study abroad programme, and I certainly recommend that you investigate that. And again, for this we charge a reduced rate, so it's £1,385. Many of our degrees, for example, in the management school and engineering, offer this year in industry programme as part of the degree. So for this year, you go out into the real world of business to get some hands-on experience. So for that year, it's £1,850. So with your tuition fee, whether it's the 9250 or one of these reduced amounts, there are loans available to cover them. So as we're talking about this system for English students, it's coming from a company called Student Finance England. So they can offer a loan to cover these tuition fees. So you're going to be eligible for the full amount if it's your first degree. So I strongly recommend that you do lots of research just to make sure you're choosing really the right course at the right place for you. Occasionally there is funding if you do a second undergraduate degree, but it's a bit limited. So you're better off to do your research and choose the right course the first time round. And of course, you need to be a resident in England to qualify for this. So this loan to cover your tuition is not based on your household income. It's simply whether it's your first degree and you're a resident in England. The second amount of costs that you're likely to have are your maintenance, or what we sometimes call living costs. So this is everything from your accommodation through to your food, travel, books, and of course, socializing. So there are loans available to help cover these costs. So again, from Student Finance England, the amount that you will get depends on two main things. First off, your household income. So when I say household income, what I mean by that is the people essentially who are in the same permanent residence as yourself. So for example, if you have a parent who lives elsewhere, their finances are not included in your total. It will also vary depending where you end up going to study. So there are three main categories: whether you stay at home and just commute to your local university, if you go to London, or if you move out of home but not go to London. So those are the three main categories. So this loan gets paid directly to you. Unlike the tuition loan, which perhaps rather sensibly goes directly to the university, this one comes into your bank account because, of course, you'll be the one that needs to work out all of your payments for your accommodation and food, etc. And you get it in 3 installments. So it's really important that you think about your budgeting and work out how you're going to spread out your finances for the entire time until your next installment is due. So for those of you who like to see some numbers, this will give you a rough idea about how much loan you're likely to end up having. So you can see the total household income in this left-hand column. So this is the amount before tax. And you have those 3 categories that I mentioned earlier. So staying at home, going elsewhere, or going to London. So you can probably see from this table that as the household income total increases, the loan amount decreases. But no matter what your household income is, you will be eligible for at least something. So if you have a look at this first column for staying at home, for example, as you go down the column, you'll notice in the last couple of rows that it just plateaus at 3,516. So really, if the household income is 65,000 or 650,000, you would still be eligible for that minimum amount of 3,516. So no matter where you fall in this table, you will be eligible for something. If you'd like to get a rough idea about what you're likely to get, there is a government calculator that you can use. So you can put in your household details and they'll give you an estimate of what you're likely to be entitled to. Now, for some students, there may be some additional support that they can apply for. And unlike those loans that I've just mentioned, these are actually non-repayable. So I've included here some of the more well-known sort of categories that people tend to qualify for. So disabled students, students who perhaps are estranged from their families, or perhaps they're independent students, if they've spent time in care, or perhaps you're a student who has children or adults who are financially dependent upon them. And there's often sometimes additional support for travel too. So this is all funding that you'd need to apply to. So I'm going to go into more detail about disability support allowance because that's the one that we get the most questions about. So when we say disability, this will cover quite a wide range of different conditions. So it could be a learning difficulty, a physical disability, mental health condition, or perhaps a long-term health condition. So please do go to this government website that I've put on the screen here. There's a lot of additional details there about the criteria and also the application process. But in short, this depends on your individual needs. So it's not based on household income like the maintenance loan is. So for 2021 entry, the new details are that undergraduate students can get up to £25,000 a year for support. So this can be perhaps a mixture of equipment that you might need, or perhaps personalised support. So for those students who are doing an NHS-based course, there's again additional support available for you. So starting off with medical and dental students. So there's this NHS bursary, which is non-repayable, again, financial support for up to £3,643. So this comes from the NHS. It's just for medicine and dentistry students. Our courses for medicine and dentistry are 5 years, so you tend to get the support in your last year. We've got a good summary of all of the financial support for NHS students on the University of Liverpool website, which again, I've put down on the bottom of the screen here. And on the same website, you get all the information about other NHS courses, such as these that I've listed on the right-hand side here. So these are the other NHS courses that we offer at Liverpool. So for these ones, there's additional a non-repayable payment of £5,000 for eligible students for each year. Okay, so this is on top of your student loan entitlements, but you don't have to repay these ones. And some students may also additionally qualify for an extra £3,000 perhaps. So for certain subject areas, and sometimes for students who perhaps need to help cover childcare costs, etc. But please do make the most of our summary pages on our own website. There's a lot of additional information there, as well as some booklets that you can download to look at later. So that's all the information that you get and the financial support that you get from the government and from the NHS. But many universities will also offer things called scholarships and bursaries. Now, these are also non-repayable, and it's up to individual universities how they end up allocating this money. So it could be based, again, on your household income, on academic achievement, your sporting prowess, all sorts of different things. So when you're doing your research to find the right course for you at the right place, as well as looking at the details of all the modules and the assessment and all the exciting opportunities like study abroad, do have a look at the scholarship pages as well. Of course, as I'm from the University of Liverpool, I can outline just a few of the ones that we have here. So our main one, which we call the Liverpool Bursary. This is non-repayable, of course, for UK students, and it's based on household income. So for students with a household income of up to 25,000, they'll get £2,000 per year. For students from a household between 25,001 and 35,000, it's £750 per year. Now, when you're filling out your student finance form, there is the option to share your information with the universities you're applying to. If you leave this as being that you accept, you give permission to do this, then we will know, and so we can actually automatically apply this if you qualify for it. We also have quite a wide range of other financial support as well. So again, make the most of our university money pages. So this gives you an idea of the breadth of the different ones that we have on offer. But I want to just highlight two of them. So we have the Elite Athletes Scheme, because we do have some students who perhaps are competing at sort of national, international level. And so this Elite Athletes Scheme is designed to support those students with some financial benefits, of course, up to £3,000, but they'll also provide extra support so that those students can balance their sporting commitments and, of course, their academic studies. The other one I'd like to highlight is the Hardship Fund. Now, this is available for any student who finds themselves in financial difficulty while they're studying with us. Of course, we'd recommend that you don't wait until your finances have completely dried up. If you think that you're getting into trouble with your money, please make an appointment to speak to our money advisors. They'll be able to give you some tips about budgeting, and if need be, they can arrange for an emergency loan for you. So that's what the hardship fund is there for. But as you can see from the screen, there's lots of other financial support for people who are perhaps asylum seekers, who are estranged, mature students, care leavers, adult carers, etc. And also some of our departments may have some additional scholarships, so please do ask around. So then we come to the repayments. So this is just for those loans that I mentioned. So the tuition loan and the maintenance loan, they are grouped together. So once you need to start making repayments, it is just the one amount that you end up paying. So you're eligible to start making repayments the April after graduation. But, and this is very key, you only make payments if you're earning over the threshold. So the threshold at the moment is £27,295. So if you are earning over that threshold, they'll work out 9% of that and then take that out of your salary. Now they do charge interest from the day that you take out the loan, but what's really important to remember is that any unpaid balance that you have, and a vast majority of students still will owe something after 30 years, it gets written off. Okay, so please remember that the repayments are based on your earnings, not how much money you've borrowed in the first place. And if at any time you are earning underneath the threshold, you don't make repayments. And unlike a credit card or a bank loan, where if you start skipping payments, you get yourself into trouble, it's not the case for these at all. So if you're not earning over the threshold, you don't make repayments. So how much do you actually end up paying? So this table will give you a rough idea. So as you can see, it's linked to your income. So on the left-hand side here, I've got some examples, and then the repayment, what you'd be doing each month on the right-hand side. So you can see if you were earning £30,000, it would only be £21 a month that you'd be paying back. So last year, the average starting salary for a graduate was £23. So you can see from that for quite a lot of students, even though they're eligible to start making repayments the April after graduation, they wouldn't be making repayments straight away. So how do you apply? Well, you go to the government website. If you simply Google student finance, it should be one of the first hits there. So it's an online form. You'll need to put your identifying details in there, of course, and all your contact details, making sure that they are correct and that they are accounts that you will be checking regularly. And also, of course, you'll need to put the contact details in for whoever it is that manages your household budget and money, because of course they need to put the details in too. So it's really important that you take your time doing this and so that it's all correct. If Student Finance need any additional details from you, they will contact you, and I please do urge you to keep double checking your account just in case they're asking for anything in addition. So we don't have the set opening and closing dates at the moment, unfortunately, but we are expecting the form to open sometime in March, so in the next few weeks, hopefully, and then the deadline traditionally is sometime in May. So please do keep your eyes open for any communications from Student Finance and, of course, universities as well. So they'll be able to give more information about when the forms go live. So I've got a few tips here for you to start sort of saving and sort of budgeting your money while you're a university student. So I'm sure you already have a bank account, but before you go to university, start shopping around to see what student accounts are available. So don't just stick with whoever you're with now. They'll often offer things like an interest-free overdraft, which means that you can sort of dip into that if you need to, but do double check the small print to find out when you need to make repayments. Quite often they will try to offer lots of little bonuses to try and lure you in, so please don't get dazzled by the free toaster and kettle set. Do double check the small print just to see exactly what they can offer for you and go for the best deal. Now, lots of students do have part-time jobs while they study. Now, of course, the emphasis should always be on your academic studies, but quite a lot of students will work perhaps up to about 15 hours a week. And in a city like Liverpool, there are lots of job opportunities, and of course, the Students' Union, but also the university's career service will help you to find part-time work if you need it. You can always work full-time over the summer as well, so that you can just get a bit of a stockpile of savings, so you can then help your budgeting for the rest of term. Also investigate all your discount options. So buying a totem card, which is the student card, discount card, you do have to pay for that at the moment, but you very, very quickly can make your money back over it. You get discounts in all sorts of shops, Amazon Prime, all sorts of different things there. So it's certainly worthwhile investigating the totem card. Often different shops and things will offer separate discounts too, so always ask around for them. And please do not go into following getting bank cards or store cards. As I mentioned earlier, if you're not earning money, they don't care. They still want you to repay it. So instead of getting credit cards, which could cause a lot of trouble and also give you a bit of a black mark on your financial record later on, instead of doing that, investigate student bank accounts that have interest-free overdrafts. That's a much better path to follow. So there are lots of resources available out there. So I'm sure my colleagues are posting some of them in the chat for you. So you have Student Finance England, of course, their official website. And then, of course, they have a presence in the student room. So that's a chat room that you might be familiar with. We, of course, have lots of information on the University of Liverpool money pages. And if you want to check with someone who is independent from the government, independent from the education sector, look at Martin Lewis's website. So he's the guy that's often on morning television programs talking about getting cheap car insurance. But he's got a section on his website as well, all about student finance. So it's certainly worthwhile having a look at that too. So when you look at all these different resources, please do sign up to get updates. I know Student Finance England have a facility where you can sign up for updates. So by doing that, you'll get lots of tips and advice, and of course, find out when the booking forms go live. So that's all from me from the main presentation. So I'm just going to ask Jamie to come back just to see if there are any sort of common questions that he would like to discuss or ask me in there. So Jamie, what would you like to add?
Yes, thanks for that, Louise. Thank you very much. And thank you, viewers, for getting your questions in. So our team now will start working through these questions. So do get them in. Our team behind the scenes will answer them verbally, and we'll do our best, textually, and we'll do our best verbally, both me and Louise. So we've had some common themes come up. So I think it's worth just reminding everyone, Louise, so when students can apply, so yeah, what's the time period to apply for your finance?
So at the moment, unfortunately, Student Finance haven't confirmed the actual dates, but we're expecting it to open sometime in March, so hopefully very soon. And traditionally, the deadline tends to be in May. So hopefully you should have about 2 months to fill out the application. I mean, once you've got all the details to hand and you start filling it in, it would only take you about half an hour or so, but it's just getting all those details in and making sure whoever manages your finances has everything to hand as well. So it shouldn't take too long to actually complete the form, but hopefully there'll be an announcement soon about when it opens.
Definitely. And for students who are applying to Student Finance England and Student Finance Wales, there is a mailing list you can sign up to through the links that are posted in the chat right at the start of the presentation. And what they'll do is they will inform you as soon as applications open. So that might be a little bit easier for you to do rather than having to keep check the websites, just get them to contact you directly as well. I do think it's worth pointing out as well, viewers, that if you are applying to Student Finance, you don't need to have heard back from all your universities you've applied to. So I think the key thing is, and I think you'd agree, Louise, is that get your application into the system you're applying to. And then what you would do is you would put what you think your first choice university would be. You can always go back into your portal afterwards if you have changed your first choice, or if it's not the university you're going to, you simply update it after that. But we would encourage you, as soon as applications open, even if you haven't heard back from everyone, just simply apply. Because as Louise just said, it takes only about an hour, really, if you do it online. So it's very much worth doing.
Yeah, it's very easy to change things. If you change your mind at any point, even if you end up then going through clearing or something like that, you can really easily just update your online application form with your new details.
Definitely. We've also had a common theme coming up, viewers, that would address just straight away. So in terms of what we call in-year income assessments, so we've had quite a few viewers say that what if my income changes throughout the year, if I go on maternity, or essentially if your household income is different than what it was in the previous tax year, because as you know, that's what they base it on. So if that happens, so if your income changes by over 15%, so 15% or more, you can do what's called an in-year income assessment, whereby you just simply update student finance with your new information and your new circumstances. At that point, they will then reassess your support, but you can do that just straight through the student finance website. So if you know that's going to happen, or if you see it coming, you just simply do that. So it's actually quite simple. So nothing to worry about, and it'll be reassessed.
Yeah,
Okay.
that happened to a friend of mine. Her father retired halfway through second year, so she got in contact and she got a whole lot of extra money, which was quite a nice surprise for her. But also, if you're self-employed, and of course, everyone's finances will be very different after the last few months or so. If you think that what you're entering in as being your previous full tax year is not quite a true indication, contact Student Finance England. They'll be able to give you some advice about what to do.
Definitely. And also, a common thing we've got at the moment is that with your maintenance loan, so what's the frequency of it coming in? So when do students expect to receive each instalment of their maintenance loan?
Yeah, so it's 3 times a year. So it's the start of term, really. So that's why it's really important that students do have a think about how they're going to stretch out their loan, or perhaps supplement it with part-time work as well. Because you do want to make sure that you don't just have an amazing first 2 weeks. You want to be able to feed yourself for the entirety of the term.
Definitely. Yeah. And we always recommend viewers this, that you prioritize your accommodation first. If you're choosing to live in halls and choosing to live away and you're getting a student loan, prioritize that first. Okay. Make sure you've got a roof over your head, essentially. So get that sorted. We'd recommend prioritizing that first.
Sometimes
so also,
students, especially in the first year, it's a little bit easier for them if they go into catered accommodation, because then at least, even if you get your budgeting completely wrong, you've got your accommodation paid for and you've got 2 meals a day, and you can sort of make do on that if need be. So that's sometimes, if you're a little bit nervous about budgeting, going into catered accommodation might be a safe option for you.
Definitely. And when you mentioned budgets, Louise, and you mentioned Martin Lewis, we promise viewers we are not sponsored by Money Saving Expert or Martin. It's just it's a good website for understanding student finance overall, but also budgeting. And there's some really good budgeting tips on there. And we can't stress enough, make a budget. It's a bit of a faff at the start, no doubt, but it will save you down the road, we promise you, and make it a bit easier. Now, I've had a lot of viewers ask about NHS funding and healthcare funding. I do believe I posted some links in there at the start, and Louise mentioned it in a presentation, but there's 2 main themes just to recap on it. So there's the NHS bursary for later year medicine students and dental students. So that's available for you as well. There's also what's called the NHS Learning Support Fund, or LSF. We do love some acronyms in higher education. So the Learning Support Fund, that's for certain healthcare courses as well. All the figures were on the slides earlier, on the link as well. In the chat, you'll find, I think I posted it towards the start, so take a look just there. But there is extra funding for NHS students for that. Okay. So, I've had a question actually. So can students partly fund their courses themselves? Can they partly fund their tuition themselves and take out a partial loan instead of taking out the full loan?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's no obligation to take the loan at all, or you can just take part of it if you want to. But quite often, this is the best loan you'll ever be offered. So I'd certainly think very carefully before you reject this loan option. As I said earlier a few times, that unlike any other loan, if you're not earning, you don't make repayments for it. So it's one of the best ones you'll ever be offered in there. So certainly think carefully about it before you turn it down.
Absolutely. We've also had a question on how students apply for bursaries. Now, some of them, as Louise mentioned in a presentation, you'll automatically receive. Some of them you have to apply for directly. So that's usually in the form of sporting scholarships and those kind of things if you go to different councils, or essentially, but usually they're quite automatic. Correct me if I'm wrong, Louise, but I think for it to be automatic, there is some kind of consent you have to provide within your student finance application for universities to receive your household income information.
I know last year it was, and I'm assuming that the default will stay the same. So the default was that you do agree to share financial details with universities. So if you double check when you're filling it out, look for a question about that, and just make sure that you say that yes, you do agree to share the financial information, because then it means that we can simply automatically give you our bursary if you come to us, of course.
Absolutely. Thanks, Louise. So do keep your questions coming in, viewers. You can see quite a lot coming through, and we've got our team behind the scenes. As you, if anyone joined us last week, you would have seen my head going back and forth. It's because I'm talking to the team behind the scenes. But thanks for that information, Louise, and thanks for coming, viewers. So let's have a look for some questions around bursaries. So could you just remind students, Louise, the elite athlete scheme, what does that include, please?
Right, okay. So it includes up to 3,000, if my memory serves me right. So up to £3,000 to help support elite athletes. So when we talk about elite athletes, what we mean by that is someone who either competes at individual or as part of a team at sort of national, international level exam. So they'll provide this sort of additional financial support for you. So there'll be all sorts of things that money can go towards. And they'll also be able to sort of put you in contact with sort of our sports teams and our sports experts, of course, at the university, because we've got a very wide range of different sports that we offer at the University of Liverpool. So they'll be able to provide additional support and training facilities, etc. too.
Definitely. And as Louise said earlier, sorry, Louise, it's just so important for when you do any research to different universities. Different universities will have different amounts, different criteria. But if you go into any kind of any open days or visit activities from here, please always ask them about the scholarships and bursaries. It's so important.
Yeah, so all of our financial information is on just sort of www.liverpool.ac.uk/money. So that's where the landing page is. So you'll get a summary of essentially what I've discussed in this presentation, and you'll find lots of links to all of our scholarships and bursaries, tips about disabled student allowances, etc. So it's a real wealth of information there. And there's also, of course, contact details. So if you want to speak to one of our financial advisors, the details are there too.
Definitely. And I've just seen that my colleague Kieran has posted a link in the chat to the scholarships and bursaries. So thanks for that, Kieran, a behind the scenes star. So we're just going through them now as well. So remember, Student Finance England got Student Money Week next week. So make sure to view that on the Student Finance Facebook page. You can register there as well. Okay. Here's a very good question, actually. So does your accommodation come from your maintenance loan? Yes. So we do recommend that you pay for, so your accommodation will be paid through, or can be paid, shall I say, with your maintenance loan. You're welcome to pay it however you want, but most students, if they get a maintenance loan, it will go towards their accommodation. And we always prioritize that first to recommend that.
And also, if you end up having any difficulties with your application, because remember I mentioned a few times that we anticipate the deadline to be in May, but you still can apply for finance after May, but it's simply that they can't guarantee that it'll be in place at the start of term, which can then sometimes have a bit of a knock-on effect, which if you're trying to pay for accommodation, can be a bit tricky. But if you are having any difficulties with your loans and getting them on time, just keep channels of communication open with the university so we know what's going on, and the accommodation team will also be able to understand what's going on as well.
Absolutely. And everybody, you should have possibly received a recording to the accommodation website, the accommodation webinar last week. So feel free to nip back and view that. Katie gave a fantastic presentation. There were some really good questions asked. I think it's also available on our accommodations YouTube channel. And that is fantastic. So feel free to visit that as well. I can't stress enough as well for Student Finance England and Wales as well. They have fantastic YouTube channels as well. Anytime anything changes, any updates or anything new, they'll produce like a very short digestible video that you can just watch. You can share it as well if you need to host it anywhere. So that would be a really good place to head, would be the YouTube videos and YouTube channels. So someone's asked Louise, to get my student finance, do I need specifically a student bank account?
Not necessarily. You don't have to. You can sort of nominate any bank account for it to go into. I simply recommended to investigate the student ones because they'll often give you interest-free overdrafts and perhaps some nice little bonuses as well. So do shop around to see what the best bank account is for you. But you essentially put the bank account that you want to use in your form.
Definitely, yeah. And there'll be loads of freebies. So whatever's going to be most relevant to you. If you know you're going to do a lot of rail travel, see if they do a rail card. If you're not going to go anywhere, rail card is probably not the best. So maybe a discount card or something would be great for that. Okay. So can we just a very quick reminder for everyone how the income is assessed, so how students figure out how much maintenance loan they're going to get, please, Louise.
Okay, so your sort of household income amount, that's assessed by you putting in, or whoever manages your finances, puts all of your details, household details, into the student finance application form, and then they'll have a look at it. So it's essentially any taxable income. So if they get taxed on it, you have to declare it in the application form. So student finance will look at your form, and they'll then work out sort of what they can then allocate you regarding the loan amount. Now, I mentioned the calculator, again, that's on a government website, and it's the student finance calculator. So if you want to have a bit of an idea of what you might likely get, you can put in your sort of household income, which, remember, as I mentioned earlier, is just those that you're living with. So if you have a parent elsewhere, their finances are not included. But if you have a step parent, perhaps, who is living in the same household as you, their money is included. So that's why we call it household rather than family. Again, if you're a mature student, if you have a partner, their finances would be included. So that's why it's called household income. So student finance simply assess this, and then they will decide how much loan they'll be able to give to you.
Great, thanks, Louise. Also, we've had quite a few questions actually about overpaying your maintenance loan in terms of repayments. Can you do this? Yes, you are welcome to pay back as much as you want to. It's just that 9% over the repayment threshold bracket is done automatically through HMRC. If you want to pay more, you're more than welcome to. If you've done brilliantly and want to pay it off straight away, you go for it. But you can increase your repayments if you want to. Yes, absolutely.
It's worthwhile thinking carefully about that as well, because remember, I did mention, if once you get to that 30-year limit after graduation, if you still owe anything, it will get written off. So you don't want to sort of scrimp and save and make lots of additional repayments when perhaps in the long run it might have been written off anyway. So talk to some financial advisors so that they can run the sums and they can work out perhaps whether, if you end up having a higher salary, or perhaps you feel that you can afford to pay more than the set amount, they can work out whether it's actually worthwhile for you to do so or not.
Exactly. Thanks for that, Louise. Mm-hmm. Also, a common thing we usually get is if students are living between different households, which household income assessment is used for that. Mm-hmm. What Student Finance recommend is that in the first instance, they'll ask you where you spend the most time, essentially. So which household you spend the most time in. After that, if you, the way the word it is, if you spend equal amount of time between two households, you simply nominate what your dominant household is as well. And what I will, I'll post in the chat as well a link to that page that will be helpful. And there's quite a lot of information for parents, carers, supporters as well, which will be worth having a look at as well. And interestingly enough, there's a session next week put on by Student Finance England about for parents and carers and supporters. So make sure to investigate that as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just going to take a drink, actually, Louise.
What you've just been mentioning, Jamie, it just reminded me of a question that I get asked every now and then by a student, is if after graduation you move abroad, whether you have to still make repayments or not. The legal answer is yes. Yes, you do. You are legally bound to make repayments. So what you'd need to do is to contact Student Finance England to let them know where you're now living, and they'll simply work out what the exchange rate is. So they'll take the equivalent of that 9% over the threshold. So I'm afraid you can't just run away to the Bahamas. You are still eligible to and obliged to keep making those repayments.
Definitely, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And just an interesting point in terms of your repayments, when that, so when they look at your earnings, what do they assess it on? It's pre-tax. So it's the amount pre-tax, just to clarify that, everybody. as well. Okay. But that is a common question. We always get that, Louise. Another common question we're getting actually tonight from everyone is when you talk about household income, what does that entail? Does it entail, for example, if a student has a part-time job, so is earning a wage, is their wage included within that? I believe so. I think the line that Student Finance gave us at some point, it's always worth clarifying this, by the way, with the respective student finance body, so England, Wales, Northern Ireland. But I think the basic line that I got given once was it's basically any taxable income coming into the household, but there is other criteria too. And there's quite a comprehensive list that Student Finance have produced that you can actually access. So for that kind of question, the best place to go is straight to Student Finance and ask them directly, okay? Because then they'll let you know exactly what is covered.
Yeah, so if you think that your household arrangements are a little bit unusual, or there's sort of different discrepancies with tax rates, do contact Student Finance England directly, because remember, they are the ones that make the final decision. So they are the ones that decide whether you're an English resident, for example, or whether you qualify for the support. So always, if in doubt, double check with them directly.
Exactly. It's just because viewers, I can see a lot of people asking, does it include savings? Does it include benefits? I'm just not sure at the moment. So
I think it's just taxable income, but it will be worthwhile double checking.
Definitely. So we're not ignoring you. We're not ignoring any questions on that. We just don't want to give you any wrong information as well. So Louise, could you just remind our viewers what support or extra support independent students can receive?
All right. Yes. For independent students, we have a bursary for Liverpool as well. And there's also support available from the government essentially as well. I can't remember off the top of my head what the numbers are, Jamie. So hopefully you might be able to remind me of the numbers involved. I don't want to.
I'm getting that right now as we speak.
So I know the disability one, but not that one.
Okay, viewers, I've just found the page and it is an extensive page. So what I will do is I will pop it in the chat for you. And then what we'll do is we'll look for the answer within that. But I've just posted it there. So finance for independent students within the chat. Okay, so if we just take a look at that, you should be able to find the answer in there for you. Okay. We're having quite a few questions about, can I get more than one bursary or scholarship, Louise?
Sometimes you can, yes. So you could perhaps get a disabled student allowance, but also qualify for a study abroad bursary or something like that as well. So sometimes you can mix and match them. Always double check any small print on university websites, just in case there are any exclusions. But quite often you can pair them together, or perhaps you might just get the better offer in there. So do double check the small print.
Certainly. So we've had quite a few questions as well, just coming in right now. I think we've had some people just dial in, so maybe they've just finished work, about how and when we apply. So the way that we recommend applying to student finance is online, through the online portal. That's the quickest and easiest way, and usually the most secure as well, through that way. So the applications usually open, they're likely to open in March for Student Finance England, and the deadline is usually the end of May. But we're not sure at the moment. Student Finance will update you at some point. But as soon as they open in March, we recommend sitting down at the computer, finding access to the computer, and just get the application done straight away, both your section, but also your sponsor section, so your parents or guardians or supporters. So open in March, probably have until the end of May, apply online. Okay. As we mentioned earlier, with your bursaries and scholarships, some are automatic. So I think you are right, Louise. I believe that you still have to give consent for universities to receive that information. There's a clear section on the application form, and some you have to apply for example, with sporting scholarships. Okay. Are the scholarships and bursaries extra to the maintenance loan? Yes. So you will get if you're eligible for maintenance loan and want it, you'll get that, but also you can be eligible for some scholarships and bursaries on top of it as well. And also, I believe if you're eligible for any extra support, for example, the DSA, the Disability Support Allowance, you can get that alongside that too. But as Louise said, always check the fine print. Great question. Is Liverpool a city student-friendly prices? Certainly, it's one of the cheapest university cities, I believe. It's really affordable. As Louise said, you've got the totem card, discount card across the city. Do you want to expand upon that, Louise?
Yes, sure. I mean, as you've probably already gathered from my accent, I'm not native to Liverpool or indeed the Northwest. So I'm originally from down the South Coast, and it's considerably more expensive the closer you get to London. So a city like Liverpool, it's fantastic and diverse and so much going on, but it's much, much cheaper as well. So things like rent costs will be cheaper, often transport, food, socializing, it ends up being a lot cheaper in some cities than in others. So it's certainly worthwhile thinking about how far your student loan will stretch, because remember, your maintenance is based on your household income. So you would actually, if you're moving out of home and not going to London, everywhere outside of home in London, you'll get the same amount. So if you come to Liverpool, Leicester, Leeds, Brighton, or Bangor, you'd get the same amount. And in some of those cities, your loan won't stretch as far as it will in others.
Certainly, absolutely, yeah. So it's fantastic, fantastic city overall. Not saying that because I'm biased and I work here, but I've always loved Liverpool, and especially the prices for everything. We continue to get so many questions about our scholarships and bursaries. So I just thought I'd remind you viewers very quickly about our main one at Liverpool, so the Liverpool bursary. Now you can follow the link in the chat that Kieran posted before. But essentially, it's a bursary based on your household income between £25,000 and £35,000. If your household income is on or under £25,000, you will receive £2,000 per year from the university to assist you with your studies, essentially. After that, if you start going, oh yeah, you'll go back to the slide. Thank you. There we go. So if you go over it by £1, so it's £25,001 up until £35,000, it's £750 per year. Okay. With that one, there isn't any particular spending criteria or anything. So it's just to assist you in the best way that you think it would for your studies. Okay. But that's just one example. If you go to the next slide, please, Louise, you'll see all the examples that we offer. Animation, fantastic. Okay. Brilliant. So just to make you aware, but you can follow the link in the chat, viewers, and it'll all be there as well. Okay. Let's go back to my team behind the scenes, see what we're being asked. Okay. We have got plenty and plenty of questions coming in, by the way, viewers. Also, in the Q&A, you can see already answered questions. So if you were going to ask a question that was probably that someone else has answered already, you can find it in the chat. You can find the answer to that in that section, but do feel free to ask us as well. What are the interest rates on the student loan? Yes, so interest rates currently are, at the moment, it's the retail price index set by the government by up to, and then plus up to 3%. Okay, and student finance will make it very clear what the interest rate is for you. So that's what we have at the moment. I'm not entirely sure what the RPI is at the moment. I will double check, but that's the rate for that one, viewers. So that is actually an important question, because sometimes it can be missed out on the guidance that there is interest on the loan. So it's important to keep you guys informed. Louise, how do you qualify for the mature student bursary?
Oh, right. Okay. So mature students, do correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes mature student is someone who's over the age of 21. Sometimes it's over the age of 25. So sometimes it does change a little. So hopefully someone can busily go behind the scenes to find out which one that is. Have you got it?
Yeah, speedy
Excellent,
here. Yeah, so just to read it verbatim. So mature students bursary is for students entering the university aged 25 or above prior to the first day of the academic year, which is usually 1st of September, but the first day of the academic year, and who are embarking on your first degree of study and are not in receipt of any other university financial award. Okay, sorry about that, my voice went then. So yeah, so aged over 25, and the bursary is worth £1,000 and it's payable for 1 year. Okay, so that is an important question, actually. Thanks for that, viewers. Okay, so do keep your questions coming in. Our fantastic team behind the scenes are doing their best to keep answering them. Also, let us know if you need us to go back a few slides and remind you about anything. I can see Louise has popped on the page some good resources for you to follow. So you got the Student Finance England body, you've got Money Saving Expert, and importantly, the Student Room. Now with the Student Room, I really love the Student Room. I would recommend using that everything in terms of like preparing for university. I used it when I was going to university. So it's not just good for student finance, but it's good for stuff like, best recipes, best, like really good hauls and getting to know people within your course as well. So we really would recommend answering that and checking that out as well.
I'd only say just to double check when you are looking at responses and information, who is actually saying that information. Is it just a student who perhaps applied to that university 4 or 5 years ago, because things do change, both with admissions and finance and all sorts of things. So double check who's actually providing the information. If it's an official person from a university or from Student Finance England, then it should be pretty reliable. But if they have a generic username, have a little bit of caution. So double check for things like scholarships from official university websites and official university reps if they're on the student room.
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%. So Louise, in terms of a year abroad, so in terms of the year abroad, how it works, so is the fee reduced for that year for certain universities, for example, Liverpool, and also can students receive support for that year from Student Finance?
Yep. This is one of the numbers I wrote down because I thought I might be asked about it. So for ourselves, just at Liverpool, if you take a study abroad programme, it's £1,385 for the tuition fee for that year. So it's not that full sort of 9250 amount, it's that reduced amount. And of course, you're still eligible for the tuition loan to cover that in there as well. But there's also sort of financial travel grants and all sorts going on as well. So study abroad is a really exciting opportunity, and I'd certainly recommend investigating your options. So have a look at the University of Liverpool webpage. We've got links with universities all over the world. We, of course, have our sort of flagship campus over in China as well. So do investigate those options. Yes, you can still get your tuition loan, you can still get your maintenance loan as well to cover your expenses, but quite often universities will have little extra pockets of money that you can apply for just to help you with the whole experience.
Definitely. Thanks, Louise. We've also got, I think I just addressed this, I'll answer this myself because I got the website of Louise. So we've had a question from a Welsh student. So what grants and support do Welsh students receive as well? So for Welsh students, you can receive, again, the tuition fee loan from Student Finance Wales. You can also receive the maintenance loan and the Welsh Government Learning Grant. So the Learning Grant, again, both the grant and the maintenance loan depend on your household income. So how it works is the higher your household income, the less grant you'll receive and more of it will be replaced by a loan. So for example, if your income starts at £18,370 per year, you get a grant of £6,885, so that's non-repayable finance. And then your maintenance loan is £1,905. As you increase, as I said, the grant is replaced by a loan instead. And that the rates are just for giving an example there for if you're living at home with your parents. Most students will fall into what's called the elsewhere category, so living away from home but outside of London. So if you're doing that, your maximum grant is £8,100 and your maximum loan is £2,250. And then as the income increases in your household, you go to at least £1,000 grants. And no matter what your circumstances, Welsh students, you receive at least £1,000 grant. And then your loan at that point for the maximum is £9,350. Okay, so just thought I'd address that. There is links right at the start of the chat that I posted in as we started, so feel free to visit those as well. But thank you very much for that. I must say, Louise, time is flying because we're almost out of time. So I think we've got time for maybe a couple more questions and then we will wrap up.
I can see there's about 168 questions still sat in there. So apologies, we're not going to be able to answer all of them, but I know my colleagues are trying to group them together into themes just to hopefully cover most people's questions.
Definitely. So yeah, again, that is brilliant. Thank you ever so much, everyone. A, for dialing in. B, for being so engaged, asking us questions. We hope this has been really useful for you in this kind of way. In fact, what I will do, viewers, is I'll just wrap up there because we have had quite a few questions actually from what I'm going to assume are our regular viewers about what is our next installment. So our next installment in our webinar series is around careers and employability, I believe. So that will be towards the end of March. Can't confirm the date just yet, but it's going to be towards the end, but that will be our next theme if you'd like to join us again and ask us any questions about careers, employability, support that we offer you at the university. So what's going to happen from here is that everyone will receive a follow-up email. It will feature the recording to this session. It also includes some more handy links as well. And also, we will include a link there for you to access our UniBuddy platform. So if you're not accessed our UniBuddy platform yet, it's essentially an online textual chat that links you directly to real life Liverpool students to ask them any questions about life at Liverpool. But following this, you could go on there and ask them about what's their best tips for budgeting, or what do they do around their finance? You know, what was best for them? Have they got a part-time job? So we really would encourage you to chat to our current Liverpool students. Okay. Now then, viewers, again, thank you ever so much for joining us. Louise, have you got any final words?
No, just a thank you, really. So thanks to everyone for joining us, and thank you very much for Jamie for fielding questions for me. Thank you.
That's it. And thank you, Louise, for presenting. All right, everyone. Sorry we couldn't answer all your questions today, but hopefully that was helpful. We'll see you at the next installment. Until then, stay safe, take care, and thank you ever so much for coming.